Welcome everybody to why have locum rates nearly doubled. Before we get started, let's just do a quick tech check. Hopefully there's people joining us here today. You should be able to comment underneath this video, and if you comment, it'll pop through on our screen, and we'll be able to just see if everyone is here. So just give that 30 seconds. While we're waiting on that, we'll just do a little bit of housekeeping. We do encourage as much interaction as possible on these webinars. It'd be great if you're on the webinar, if you could say hello and say your name, and we will get back to you. Also, any questions throughout the webinar, we're always happy to take them. So my name is Stevie McIntyre. I'm the marketing lead here at Located Locum, and I'll be doing the first half of the webinar. And I'm also joined by Johnny Clark, who is the CEO here at Located Locum, and he'll be doing the second half of the webinar. We have Jeanette Hare here also, who is going to be moderating the comments and questions for us, which is really helpful. So if you do have any questions, Jeanette will get back to you, and we will reconvene at the end and go over them. So let me just check if there's any comments so far. Nothing seems to be in the chat box. So Jen, if you want to even just check on LinkedIn, you can take a look and see, make sure we're live before I get started.
Yeah, Stevie, I would say maybe give it a minute or so, maybe just for people to join and check that as well.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, anyone, if everyone, if you come on, you can just pop a comment into the comments underneath the video, and like I say, I'll come straight through to us. Because we like to keep these webinars as interactive as possible, and that's where we get the most out of them. So today we're going to be looking at the why have locum rates nearly doubled. We're going to be going through our rate study that we publish every year, and really looking at factors that influence the rates, the market rates as well. So still no comments through. Jen, did you double check that we are live on LinkedIn? Yeah, so we're all live and running. Thumbs up.
Yes, sorry. Yes, we are live.
Okay, well that's grand. Well, I'll get started in that case. Just have a shy audience. So what are we going to cover today? So we're going to go through the background and methodology of our rate study. We're going to look at the rising regional rates, and we're going to do some breakdowns of where it's risen the most, and we're going to break that down by city also. And then we're going to look at the data that we've analysed, and then factors that have influenced rates. And then Johnny's going to go through what does the future hold. I'm really delighted to see that people have said you're definitely live, so that's amazing on the comments. So thank you all very much for coming through there. Deirdre, Jeanette, Mary as well, thank you so much. And then we're going to do a Q&A. So just how you guys have put into the live box, into the box to tell us we're live, that's how you ask the questions. So like I say, if you have questions now, you can fire them into the box and we'll revisit them. Or if you have questions throughout the presentation, if they're really pertinent to the point that we're covering, we're really happy to stop and answer those questions. So yeah, thank you, Kathleen. Good afternoon. Great to have you on the webinar. Thanks so much for letting us know we're definitely live. So we always start our webinars here at Located Locum with this one big question. What do you want to get out of this webinar? What this allows us to do is shape the webinar. It allows us to decide on which route we go down, what topics we cover, and it allows you also to make sure you get the best out of the webinar, because there's nothing worse than going on the webinar and not actually getting what you came for. So if you do want to pop into the comments box, what do you want to get out of this webinar? And hopefully by the end of it, we've fulfilled all your questions, and we've covered everything that you want to cover. So yeah, loads of interaction now in the comments box, which is amazing, and keep it coming, guys. Absolutely love it. So who are Located Locum and why are we doing this webinar? So the title of the webinar is why have locum rates nearly doubled? So here at Located Locum, we are an award-winning technology platform, and we connect locum pharmacists with pharmacies across the UK. We work with over 10,000 UK pharmacies, and that goes from independents all the way up to multiples. We have posted over 1.3 million shifts on our platform in the last 3.5 years, which is a huge number. And we also have 30,000 pharmacists registered on our platform, which is almost half of the pharmacists registered in the UK. So we also have the largest database in the UK, which is just fantastic. So what that does is it gives us access to a whole load of data, and that's kind of what informs this rate study that we've done, we've completed in the last couple of weeks. So a background to the study. So this year, more than any other year, demand for locum pharmacists seems to be of an all-time high. And this demand has increased locum rates. So we do these rate studies every single year. And at the end of 2020, based on our data, we predicted locum rates would surge in 2021. And our latest rate study, we've now taken an in-depth look at the trends in the locum pharmacist rates in the previous quarter. And you might ask yourself, why haven't you waited a year and looked at the whole of 2021 against 2020? Well, the reason for that is because the last quarter was quite turbulent in the market. We've seen huge rises in some places, and we wanted to just analyze that a little bit more and understand why and what factors influence those rates. So what we've done in this study is we're comparing the yearly average rates from 2020 to the average rates from August the 1st, 2021 to October the 31st, and we compare these together. So how do we do it? So we analysed over 20,000 locum pharmacist shifts booked on LAL between the 1st of August and 2021 and the 31st of October, as I've just said. And the reason I'm calling this out is because these are pharmacist shifts. We also have technician and dispenser shifts, but we actually excluded these from this study in order to get to make it a fair test between the 2021 study. We've then broken this data down and analysed the average rate of each city and also region, and these are booked and work shifts. So this isn't shifts that have been applied for; these are shifts that are actually taking place. And we've compared this sample of 20,000 against 2020's sample of 275,000 shifts, in which we used exactly the same methodology. So hopefully that's nice and clear. And if anyone's got any questions on the methodology of how this study was taking place, please do ask, and we can be as transparent as possible. So without further ado, we're going to announce the average rate by region. So what you can see here on this slide is in the black text, numbered 1 to 4, you can see the regions. You can then see the black text of the rates. So Scotland, the current rate for 2021 of Q4 is £48.36. That's the average rate. And in the green, that's the rate rise on 2020. So you can see that the average rate in Scotland's risen by £27.20. And then moving on to England, the current rate for the Q4 of 2021 is £32.52, and that's risen by £13.50 on the 2020 study. In Wales, the rate is £32.26, and that's risen by £9.18 on the 2020 study. And in Northern Ireland, much the same as the rest of the regions, the rate in Q4 of 2021 is £24.29, and that's risen by £5.84. And what I could say here is that this kind of dictates the title of the study of the webinar. So this shows that rates have doubled across most of the regions. And what we've done as well is we have broken this down by the largest increase by city. So what we've done here is you can see again same format. 1 to 4 is the cities with the largest increase. The black text is the current rate of Q4 2021, and the green text is what it's increased by 2020. So what you can see here is Inverness has the highest rates increase. So it's sitting at 58.68p, which is huge, and it's increased on 2020 by £37.82. Dumfries comes in at second place with the current average rate of 51.78, and that's an increase of 32.55 on 2020. And Gloucester is sitting at 43.18, and that's an increase of £25 on 2020. And then Hull likewise has increased, is sitting at 43.93 and has increased by 23.73. And one point I'd make here is that the trends of the rates increase, this shows that it's not a geographical trend. This is a real trend across the whole of the UK. As you can see here, Inverness right at the top of Scotland, and then you've got Gloucester, which is a southern city in the UK. So like I say, this is the rates rise goes across the whole of the UK, and hopefully we're gonna jump into some factors of why this has happened. As well as looking at the increase, we've also broken it down by looking at the highest and lowest rates, average rates in 2021. So the highest average rates is Inverness, which you've just highlighted, so that's a 58.68. Dumfries is 51.78. Sterling is £48.31. Hull 43.93, Peterborough 42.22. And again, emphasize the fact that this isn't set in one area, although the top three are in Scotland. Also, you have Hull in the north of England, and you have Peterborough in the south of England. So this obviously isn't a geographical thing. And then looking at the lowest average rate again, Belfast comes in at 22.45, Lancaster 23.73, Derry Londonderry 25.43, Leicester 29.39, and Exeter 26.95. So this just gives a little flavour of the rates and the data that we've managed, the data sets we've managed to get out of the study. What we'll have at the end of this webinar is we'll be sharing out the full breakdown of the top 50 cities by population and their average rates for 2021 Q4. And we'll also be comparing them back to 2020, which you can all access on our website. You can access the 2020 report currently. So what I'll do now is I'm going to hand over to Johnny. Johnny's going to go through some external factors influencing rates. Take it away, Johnny.
Thank you, Stevie. Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me and see me okay. I think Stevie had the easy job there telling you what the survey or the report actually meant in terms of the hourly rates across cities in UK. I believe I have a slightly harder job in that, I have to put my opinion on it as to why these sort of changes happened, particularly in the last quarter. The last quarter overall has seen such a dramatic rise in locum pharmacist rates. And really what I would like to share with you over the next couple of slides is my opinion on that. As I said to that, it is an opinion, and I encourage, debate. Feel free to join in on the chat or the comments as to your own viewpoint. I suppose a bit of background as to why I feel justified to share my opinion. I am a qualified pharmacist. I worked as a locum pharmacist for a number of years. I'm still active on the register as a pharmacist, and throughout my day-to-day role as CEO of Locata Locum, I interact with a number of locums and also a number of pharmacies, and that's right from your large-scale multiples right down to your independents as well. So over the next couple of slides, I'm going to be breaking down factors which I believe influence rates. And the first slide here is looking at what I would determine external factors that can have an influence on locum rates. And what I mean by external is I mean that it's outside your sphere of influence. So things going on outside your day-to-day role, your company, that will have a direct influence on the change in market rates. The first point there is looking at the supply of locums. It's fact, not fiction, that locum pharmacist rates are directly proportional to supply and demand. And certainly the viewpoint that I would back up our survey that we've done is, with the impact of COVID, we've seen an incremental increase in demand for pharmacist services. Okay, pharmacists are not just working in community, they're working in hospital, they're servicing vaccination clinics, they're working as part of PCN roles as well. And due to that, the demand really of pharmacists has increased so much. And due to also not having a really increased or large amount of supply, that has meant then as competition for supply or pharmacists fulfilling shifts has increased, that is why rates have increased really proportionally. Now, something else alongside the vaccination drive, what unfortunately COVID has brought and influenced locum pharmacist rates, is the impact on holidays. So if you can recall back the last year, we spent a lot of it in lockdown. And unfortunately, what happened is a lot of employed pharmacists decided not to take or go on holiday. And if you recall, typically the use of locum pharmacists is when regular employed staff get sick, go on holiday, or there actually isn't a vacant, an employed pharmacist there. What has happened then in the reduction of those holidays? Now there's this pent-up demand. So, pharmacists at the front line have been working for 18 or so more months. And certainly in the summer there, with a bit of better weather and a bit more where the travel market started to open, we've seen more permanent pharmacists actually go on holiday. What that has done then is actually increased again the requirements of locum pharmacists, again driving up further rates. I suppose the biggest factor that I would like to share around the external is that, market rates is what it says. It's the market rate. They're entirely dependent on supply and demand. Pre-COVID times, we would have had, traditional distribution across the UK, where areas like London would have had a very, very high amount of pharmacists because it's a capital, attracts a lot of people there. And rates actually would have been one of the lowest. Conversely, to that, areas such as Southwest England, where there was a demand for pharmacists due to the high population of retirement age, no pharmacy schools in the region, so not as much pharmacist, rates would have been a lot more higher. We're seeing actually with the impact of COVID, these factors changing. And it's really, really interesting, certainly over the last quarter, the changes that has happened, where rates right across the regions that we've looked at have nearly doubled. Next slide, Stevie. So alongside external factors, we have also what's known as internal factors. So these would be spheres of influence or control that certainly you would have access to or be able to change within your role or within your organization. And this is just a few examples. So certainly from the pharmacies that we work with, and as I said, we work in excess of 10,000 pharmacies across the UK, we would see the size of your direct pool is directly proportional to the fees that you're spending on locum pharmacists. And they explain that even better. You may be a multiple pharmacy of, say 1,000 branches, but how many pharmacists are you in direct access to every single day? If it's not that high, well, then certainly you're constantly going to have to go out to third-party agencies and pharmacists that are unknown within the market. We have data that can prove, the bigger that your direct locum pool is, the bigger control you can have actually on the rates that you're booking pharmacists in. A second aspect, and connecting into the leave, is around how you forward plan with leave. So we deal with a lot of pharmacy organizations who have a manual process, how staff get approved and leave is arranged. So if you think about that, you're dealing with leave maybe up to 3 months in advance. That means you're being very active whenever your regular pharmacists go off sick and when you actually then need a locum pharmacist. And, we all can understand and appreciate that the closer the day actually approaches that you need a locum pharmacist, the higher the rate. So if I needed a pharmacist 3 weeks out versus I need a pharmacist today, the comparison in rates there would be highly different. Where typically the emergency on the day rates are much more higher than ones further advanced. So actually, if you can better manage your leave of your permanent staff, you can be better reactive and you can have better control actually on what your locum pharmacist rates actually are. Also, an important point is how you actually send shifts. So again, we deal with a lot of pharmacy companies who manipulate their locum pharmacists on a manual basis. They're maybe sending shifts out via spreadsheets and via email. And it was at the pharmacy show back in October there, and I suppose my opinion hasn't changed in that, demand for locum pharmacists and competition between locum pharmacists is at an all-time high. So a question really I want to leave you with is, how easy are you making it for locum pharmacists to interact with your organization? Pharmacy A uses no technology whatsoever. It's a very manual process. Pharmacy B utilizes a really easy to use mobile application that pharmacists can search for shifts and get paid automatically. As a locum pharmacist, who do you think I'm going to choose to work for? I'm going to choose actually where it's easy to actually obtain work and secondly, get paid. And last, but by no means least, and I suppose the biggest point for this webinar is using data. On both sides, maybe I'm as a locum pharmacist or actually as a pharmacy owner or pharmacy manager, deciding the rate of a shift is typically a finger in the air exercise. And what we would encourage is the use of data, understanding what rates are within your area. High rates change actually over, due to seasonal demand. And that enables you to make a much better informed decision. Also on the locum pharmacist side, if I want to increase my rate, I can choose then to travel to different areas of the country where I can access a higher rate than others. Next slide, Stevie, please. I was also part of a panel this week, which the rates debate actually feeds into. Is there's a question here: is there a shortage of pharmacists working in the community pharmacy sector. And on that panel that was run by chemists and druggists, there was a range of opinions. And certainly the one that I agree to is that, yes, there is 60,000 pharmacists on the GPHC register against, yes, at least 14,000 pharmacies. But I believe what's happening is actually pharmacists, due to the demand, is they have potential other roles that they can fulfill. And what we may be seeing is that those pharmacists are choosing to access those rather than choosing to work in community pharmacy. And we've got umpteenth evidence from our customers that they are struggling to recruit locums, which is leading to branch closures, which is leading to also patient harm. And I think that is actually the point. So it's not that there's a shortage of pharmacists overall, but there's certainly a shortage of pharmacists working in community pharmacy. That's me, Stevie. I suppose it might be good, or you probably want to continue on. And then, oh, sorry, I have one more slide. Apologies. Yeah, so just finishing with this is certainly my last slide, is sharing my opinion on what the future looks like. And I certainly can't tell the future, or would like to pretend that I can. But I believe in the short term, I don't think anything is going to change. And the reasons for that is the factors which are affecting pharmacist demand and pharmacist rates aren't going to change in the short term either. Right across multiple industries, we're known that we're in something as a candidate-driven market. That means actually within recruitment, candidates have the upper hand and that they can choose who they want to work for. There's a gluttony of employers that they can apply to. And I believe further into the year 2022, that is not going to change. So demand is going to remain the same, if not as high. And secondly, unless anyone can imagine up 10,000, 15,000 extra pharmacists, there's not going to be any change to the supply that can facilitate that demand. So I suppose my opinion to share is I believe this trend is going to continue into 2022. And what I'm really excited about is will there be any changes further into 2023? And I suppose, I encourage you all to access the Locum survey when we release it at that time. And we'll probably do a further webinar at that point to predict what is going to happen in 2023. But no, 2022, I believe, is going to remain fairly consistent as this year.
That was brilliant. Thank you for going over those factors and your predictions for 2022. I would say now, if anyone wants to pop in questions into the questions box, the comments box, and we can visit them after this slide. Now is the sort of opportunity. I know there's a few in already. But what I'd like to say is that we have completed, we have a full study that we've talked about in this. So we've completed a study looking at Q4 2021 average hourly rate against the rates for 2020. So everyone who's registered for this webinar will receive that in your inbox. And what that covers is average rate, hourly rate by region and by city, the full methodology and breakdown of data that we've used to get this, and it'll allow you to access market rates for your region. So keep an eye on your inbox. That'll be coming very soon, most likely tomorrow by lunchtime. That'll be in your inbox. And then following up from this webinar, we're actually going to do a full 2021 rate study that again compares back to 2020. So you'll be able to look at a huge range of data. So that'll be looking at around 300,000 shifts data as well. I can see there's some questions that have been put into the inbox. So we're going to go on to the Q&A section. If Jen, are you happy if I share these on the screen and then we can pick who answers them? So Johnny, Dee's said this, that locum rates have doubled in the Republic of Ireland. Do you have any comment on that in terms of, do you feel like it's the same factors that influence that?
Certainly, Deirdre. The opinions that I've shared as to why the rates have doubled in the UK would coexist within the Irish market. So to reiterate those again is that, demand for pharmacists in general have remained high. I'm aware of vaccination centres down south that have attractive hourly rates, which means then there's a finite amount of pharmacists within the Republic of Ireland that can satisfy that demand. So because there's no fresh supply, it means the problem's just really getting worse. And that's why we have seen rates double as well within Ireland. I would like to call out the data that we're sharing today is very much more focused on UK market, and that's the reason for that is our primary market that we service in is the UK. But we have some data from Ireland. We have a couple of Irish customers that I can pick up with you separately on, but certainly the reasons that I've explained affecting UK market, I believe can be extrapolated straight across to the Irish market also. There's no difference.
Perfect, thank you, Johnny. We have one from Gloria. Jen, you've kind of covered the reply here, but where could we find data about the rates in the area? I can answer that one. So we will be sending out the full rate study post-webinar. And again, you can have access to that. And then, like I said, next month we'll be sharing the 2021 full rate study again. So as long as your email address, you've registered for the event, you will receive that in your inbox. So I'd encourage any more questions. Jen, is there anything else coming through there?
No, sorry, I was on mute there. No, not that I can see, but one that does, I find does come up quite a lot with clients, and I don't know if, it's something that you guys are thinking about, is that pharmacies are being really proactive and they are trying to be organised and plan their rotas and their leave, but they're still getting last minute cancellations. And it'd be good to get your thoughts on that, Johnny, as to how maybe either reduce those last minute cancellations or how other pharmacies are dealing with it at the minute.
Yep. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, that does happen. So yeah, you can be really organized, you can plan ahead, and then you can book a locum who can actually cancel last minute, which means you have to be reactive and book a really emergency high rate locum on top of that. I suppose there's a couple of points that I would mention in relation to that. Firstly, pharmacists are professionals, and we're bound by a regulator in terms of the standards that we have to uphold to colleagues, and the patients. But unfortunately, like any profession, there could be, I'm not saying there could be pharmacists that take advantage of that situation and are cancelling last minute to manipulate rates. There is examples of that we've heard from different employers, but what I further would add is that, cancellations do happen on both sides. Pharmacies can cancel because they had a staff member that was sick that is now recovered and wants to come back in, or someone has cancelled their holiday. And then conversely, on the locum side, locums can cancel again because, we're in a pandemic, and if someone tests positive, for example, they would be a risk to working in the pharmacy in terms of potentially sharing any COVID symptoms. One thing that I do think happens that pharmacies can be better on is actually tracking cancellations and tracking what I would call sort of performance data. So if you're a pharmacy that uses no technology whatsoever in the management of locums, I'm a locum and I cancel for you, I've let you really down. Well, then I can walk straight across the street and actually get access to another pharmacy's chain and do the same on them and so on. We're actually, with the locate system that pharmacists use to manage their locums, we have performance data. We store performance data in that. The cancellations are actually checked against the locum. And if locums are found to be repeat offenders in that they're constantly cancelling last minute, leading to consequences in the pharmacy, well, then they can actually be blocked within the system and actually prevent them from accessing some opportunities. So the two things that I would mention about that is consider using technology to manage that and ensure to track sort of performance data. I think that the last point I would say as well, the jury is out on whether actually some of the regulators will get involved in this aspect. Certainly the pharmacy regulators like to concern more about protection against patients rather than business to business debates.
Brilliant. Cheers, Johnny. There's another one here. I think you slightly covered, but maybe we could expand a bit more. It's from Jeanette. Do you think you'll see a decrease in locum rates in 2022?
I'll answer that one, Stevie.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Do you think you will see a decrease in rates in locum 22? No, if you even want to just jump back a couple of slides, Stevie, I think I had thought I would finished before that, but just again to share what I believe 2022 is, that I believe that rates will remain consistent, and the reasons for that is there's no main changes to one of the huge factors which change market rate, which is supply and demand. Demand's going to remain as high because we're still, doing the booster vaccination sites. There still is additional roles within pharmacy that community pharmacists could be attracted to. And then secondly, we certainly don't have vast amount of supply. Yes, we have pre-registration pharmacists that come out every year, but there's not tens of thousands of those which would be needed to flood the market to consistently, change locum rates. So I'm not sure if that's the answer what you want to hear, Gloria. I'm unsure if you're a locum or a pharmacy, but to clarify, it's an as-is approach in 2022, and the jury's out in how 23 is going to be shaped. We'll have to see how we fare over the next 12 months before sharing our opinion on that.
Brilliant. Cheers, Johnny. Again, good answer. There's a question from Gloria. I think it's a locum-based question about how payment works, Gloria. I'll pick up with you after the webinar on that one. Hopefully, I can give you a good answer via email on how payment works, and I can share a help article that we have on UK Locum for that as well. Jen, is there anything else coming through?
Yes, there is. There's one here from Matthew Campbell. Can you see it, Stevie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can see that. Yeah. So
yeah, sure that one, and I'll answer it.
Okay, not a problem. Sec. There you go.
You mentioned that it's a candidate-driven market. Does your rate negotiation feature not act to drive market prices up even further? And would you have data on the average rate increase since you introduced it? So what Matthew is referring to here is that in the local management system, we have a negotiation feature, which basically allows a locum to submit a rate, which is different than what's advertised, and for pharmacy and locum to negotiate to a success. Firstly, why we introduced that feature is negotiation is part and parcel of being a locum on both sides. If our technology platform didn't exist, locums are negotiating, and how they're doing it is they're normally doing it via multiple telephone calls back and forth. So I would believe no, our negotiation feature doesn't actually act to drive the market up in any way. It's already complementing the market in what happens. So to clarify, if our system didn't exist, these negotiations would be happening via telephone. Further to that, and the pharmacy chains that choose to work with us, we give them access to the market data. So before you book a locum in, you can actually see, okay, what is locums getting booked at within this area or across this region, and that enables you to make an informed decision. And certainly time and time again through the case studies that we've demonstrated is success with pharmacy companies getting a hand on how they use locums in their business and driving a successful placement ratio. So hopefully, Matthew, that's answered your question. Thank you for sharing.
Brilliant. Thank you, Johnny. There's nothing else coming through. Well, as I wrap up, if anyone's got any further questions, we can jump back in. But just like I say, we've gone over the half an hour that we allotted for this. But just like I say, if anyone's got any further questions, we're here. We're on social media. You can access us through info@locatedlocum.com, and one of us will pick up any questions on rates. We'll also send out via email the full rate study that we've used for this webinar. And any questions again from that, just reply to the email and one of us will pick up. And any of the questions that we haven't got to here, especially the ones about locum rates, I will answer individually. Got one more here, Johnny, that's just come through, which I'll share that you might be able to help with. Are we going to see more closures in 2022? Companies not intending to pay more?
Good question. Yeah, well, I suppose I'm unsure how I'd answer that. If a pharmacy doesn't obtain a locum pharmacist, they have to close, or at least manipulate a relief pharmacist from another part of their business into that. If rates are high and pharmacies aren't willing to pay those rates, well then pharmacies will have to make a decision about what else they do. It's either a closure or it's pulling in staff that maybe had doubled up from one area of the country into that. But certainly for any pharmacy companies that are on this call, 2022 isn't going to bring any changes. Unfortunately, we certainly believe from the data and our forecasting ability is that rates will remain high going into the year 2022.
Okay, brilliant. Hopefully that answers your question, Ravi. Thank you very much for that. So I think now is probably a good time to wrap up. And if anyone's got any questions, post this. Like I said, post under the video, and we'll get back to you individually, either written or by email. You guys happy enough then, Johnny, Jeanette? And we can wrap up there.
Yep. Thank you, Stevie, for the opportunity to share that. And it's been great for the people interacting on this. And we'll probably do something similar, I think, in early Jan as well, because locum rates are such a hot topic. So we'll decide what that is and communicate out to everyone and get them involved.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny, and thanks, Jem, for your help. And I'd just like to say a massive thank you to everyone who's contributed. Like, these webinars are nothing without the audience and the people being on them. So thanks for dictating the discussion, and hopefully it was useful. Got some really nice feedback there from everyone. So yeah, I'm really happy with all participation. So thank you very much, and we'll speak again soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.